Welcome, everybody. I'm Maury Weinstein, president and co-founder of System Source. Today, we're talking about urgent security lessons from Verizon's analysis of 31,000 security incidents. It is the first of the 2026 report, and I hope it's of some benefit for you. We hope you're enjoying your pizza. If you haven't received your pizza, please check your front door or reception desk, and then contact Julie Dellinger at jdellinger@syssource.com. Thanks, Julie, for putting together today's event. During the webinar, you'll be in presentation mode, and you're encouraged to view the webinar in full screen mode. There actually will be some graphs and data today, so as there always is in my presentations, and it's best seen in full screen mode. Submit questions anytime. You're also welcome to use the chat box too. I have both of them up in front of me, including telling us what you'd like to learn today. For those of you who put in questions during registration, I have those in front of me, so you don't need to repeat those questions. Thanks. Thought we go to commercial for about 10 seconds, and then we'll get right into the meat of our presentation. Many customers come to us to mature their IT and audiovisual operations. That's really what we do a lot here at System Source and our team of 65 people. We use our training center partly to do so, to train for higher productivity, higher help desk workloads, to meet higher help desk workloads. We've done about 300,000 classes, 300,000 since the origin of our training center in 1983. About 2,500 of those 300,000 were in AI in the past 18 months. So AI training is a big focus of ours. Of course, there's lots of custom work going on, some on-premise training, some training here at System Source headquarters, but most of it is done virtually today. Presentation Systems is a group of folks that just do Teams rooms and auditoriums and lobby signage and digital signage, and all of that goes on in that group of about 11 people. Very busy this summer, of course, doing all of our traditional classroom work. Consulting is where we keep our heavy hitters. These folks average 30 years of tenure with us, and they do all of our cloud migrations and security analysis. Cloud services is code word for our data center. We've been running a data center in our Hunt Valley headquarters since 1995. So we took our cloud blinders off many years ago, but today much of our current work is being done at AWS and Azure. Service and support can be done two different directions. One is reactively, when people call us, sort of when everything falls apart. Not easy to handle. We do some work in that area, and certainly that's our legacy work from 30 and 20 years ago. Today, most of our work is being done as part of our managed services operation, where we manage operations proactively. If we maintain efficiently enough, there may be enough money left over in the budget to purchase new equipment and to keep our inventory refreshed, our environments refreshed. On behalf of System Source today, we say thanks. If any of you have not joined us for our computer museum tour, it is a substantial computer museum, probably the second largest on the East Coast, and a lot of fun. This weekend, we're hosting 60 people for PhoneCon. We do have a lot of history in the phone side of our museum also. Our management event series doesn't end or start with what you're seeing today. There's lots of others that we've done and that we do repetitively. The most recent one is proactive steps needed for cyber insurance claims to be paid in full and to minimize premiums. But there's plenty of others that we've done over the years. Just keep an eye on the front of our webpage or your email screen. The upcoming webinars, there's three that are upcoming through August 6th. One is the Wi-Fi session. Two is AI as a security risk and security tool that's being done by the KnowBe4 folks. And the third one I'll be doing myself, which is setting expectations for a managed services provider relationship. Managed services is all about setting expectations and standardization. That actually is a rare 30-minute session. You might enjoy that. The agenda today is in front of you. Your security agenda, we'll talk about that. Three patterns covering 90% of incidents. Security priorities by industry. Well, actually, today we have 15 industries represented among the registrants today. We'll be covering at least 11 of them. And we can talk about how to get data on the others. Quick and inexpensive security wins and helping management make security decisions, an important part of our responsibilities. That's on the agenda today. Let's talk about your security agenda. And that security agenda follows generally two paths. Path one is you're following regulatory standards or other external direction, maybe from board of directors, maybe from cyber insurance companies, maybe from an outside consultant of some sort. The other direction, the other security agenda that many people have is to seek research driven direction to optimize security, to maximize security at lowest cost, preventing my pet peeve, which is useless spending. Now, a lot of clients, of course, do both. Today's agenda is for those that are in bucket number two, seeking research driven direction. If you're following exclusively regulatory or other external direction, you don't really need the Verizon report because you're following other direction exclusively. So that gives you a feel for what we're going to accomplish today. The Verizon report has a long history to it. It's in its 19th year. It's this year it's about, and most years it's about 100 organizations worldwide, everyone from Akamai to Zscaler. This year, it includes large incident response outfits, boutique forensic firms, law enforcement, cyber insurance brokers. So it's covering a broad range, but you can see right here in front of you that there's a lot of people with a lot of data that you'd be interested in. Certainly I was. The two important words in today's Verizon report are the word incidents and the word data breaches. Incidents is where security penetration is proven, and data breaches is where data is proven to be lost. Data breaches is a subset of incidents, and it's about two-thirds. For many years, that number was 5%. So you can see the number of data breaches as a percentage of incidents is way up over the years. It is categorized by 20 industries. I think we'll be displaying somewhere around 11 industries this report using NAICS code. So each of your organizations have an NAICS code telling the government what industry you're in. It is worldwide and a sample of convenience, meaning that the data does move from year to year because the organizations represented move slightly from year to year. Some years maybe Secret Service reports, some years they don't. I'm just giving that as an example. So that while this is one of the very few data sources that I'm aware of that we can trust and have this type of 19-year history, the sample convenience means the data does move a little bit from year to year, depending on what organizations report. There'll be 9 stops on the data set today. So this is stop number 1. And in any battle, we probably ought to know who we're fighting against. So the answer is similar to last year, organized crime at an 87% level. Organized crime is not the mafia. The organized crime is a bad person with a plan. This man or woman who's hacking, attacking, has a plan, and it's our job to make sure our defense plan is better than his or her attack plan. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we've got to be better than their plan, and they'll move on to somebody who has a weaker security posture. Number two, some of you have joined us today in order to look at long-term trends. This trend is for a 6-year period between 2020 and the 2026 reports. One thing you can see is a little bit of wandering going on, but system intrusion is up. We'll define system intrusion in a moment, but ransomware is implicit at a 77% level in system intrusion as an outcome. Lots of other patterns here. These are called breach patterns: social engineering, basic web app attacks, miscellaneous errors, lost and stolen assets, privilege misuse. Of the 11 industries, you're going to find some combination of these breach patterns. And the top 3 in your industry will be somewhere between 80 and 90 some odd percent of the breach patterns. Now, we'll be spending most time on the top 4. The other ones don't seem to, policy misuse and lost and stolen assets, I do not believe are in the top 3 breach patterns for the 11 industries covered today. But we'll see in a moment. We'll cover them one by one. Let's get started. So 62% of breaches, Verizon says, involve a human element that's actually similar to prior year. So we're not seeing much upward trend on that one. However, For those of you who have come today for trends, this second one, 48% of breaches involve a third party, including software vulnerabilities. So if somebody, Salesforce or Microsoft or somebody dumps a software on you with a bad patch, a malicious patch, for example, that is, or a patch that is needed to prevent a attack, that is part of what they call third party. That includes software vulnerabilities that are present in the software. Now, the ends, which are the counts, which is the experience of Verizon, are not small in these measurements. So, for example, the 48% of breaches is measured using 13,000 breaches. So the data set is not thin here. That 48%, by the way, is up from 30% last year, which was way up versus prior year. I think it may have been 14% prior year, went to 30 and then went to 48. So this is on the rise. We've got to be very careful about third party. We'll spend a little more time on this in just a moment. Let's take a look at all credential abuse versus exploitation of vulnerabilities. One of the things that I look for when I look at these measurements, besides is the measurement credible and do I trust it? In the Verizon report, we trust rather implicitly. They have no axe to grind as far as we can tell, and they have a lot of data sources that you and I can't tap into. So if you consider all instances of credential abuse, that includes, by the way, pretexting, phishing, and the other credential abuse going on. That sits on top at 39% right here. So it is higher than exploitation of vulnerabilities when you add together pretexting, phishing, and some of the other credential abuse categories. Now, the unfortunate part of this slide, number 3, is that there's no 80/20 rule going on. We've got to be good at both of these areas. And you'll see that reinforced as we wander industry by industry. So no 80/20 rule. We've got to be, it's rather unfortunate. We have to be good at both of these categories. So Verizon says if you should stop postponing that MFA rollout in your organization because credentials, of course, are an integral part of the threat actors toolkit. We have a lot of proactive activities. Actually, we've cataloged them actually this morning. There's about 24 we do each year. And one of those proactive activities talks about shared, non-needed, non-expiring, weak passwords. We cover all of that in our proactive activities. And this is sort of the reason why right in front of you. Now that we know that exploitation of vulnerability is on its way up, we better take action. And a lot of this has to do with patching. So when talking about vulnerability exploitation, we have to talk about patch performance. Unfortunately, the results are worse than last year. There's a lot of good news in Verizon report, some good news, and there's some bad news, and I'll point out both sides. So this is known exploited vulnerabilities, KEVs. These are the bad ones, and the resolution status of each during that 12-month period that was studied. Remediated 26%, partially 58, unremediated 16, and Verizon says, and they have a little tongue-in-cheek humor in this 120-page report, and that is of the unremediated, Verizon says, we dare not speak. That way lies madness. Just their way of reinforcing this. So 26% were fully remediated last year, and that has gone down to, 26 this year. That's a drop from last year at 38. So we're seeing less remediated. And the unremediated ones increased from 12 to 16, 12 going to 16 right here on the bottom. And there are reasons for that, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But this is the data. So we've got to be better at patching than we are, and we're going the wrong direction. Tim, thanks for the note. You'll get a copy of today's presentation. Absolutely. Today's presentation is all about helping you focus your resources and your time, and we'll get to that more in a moment. So the median time Verizon found for a vulnerability to be fully patched is 43 days. Unfortunately, that's almost 2 weeks longer than last year's 32 days. So this is going the wrong direction. We've got to reinforce this, and we're doing a ton of work here at System Source to make sure our managed clients are patched. The good news is actually working. So we don't have to accept 43 days. Now, you may be interested in that 43-day figure. By the way, that's the median days from initial notification by a vulnerability scan. And this is not all the vulnerabilities. This is the exploited ones. These are the known exploited vulnerabilities. These are not all the CISA vulnerabilities. These are the bad ones that are already exploited. That 43 days that you see in front of you is an important number. It turns out that Chubb insurance, cyber insurance, actually reduces your claim by half if you've not patched, and guess how many days? 45 days. Now you know where they got the number from. And by the way, that number goes down by 75%. That your claim is mitigated by 75% if the patch involved has not been patched within, I've forgotten the exact number of days. It's in my cyber insurance presentation. So half of the claim gets reduced if you haven't patched the applicable patch within 45 days. So you can see that Chubb probably saves a lot of money using the data on this slide. Now, Verizon says, well, now that we see this increase from 32 to 43 days, what's behind it? And the answer is the workload is behind it. And we feel that here internally too, working pretty hard on the patch side. So of the known exploited vulnerabilities, there were 11 in the prior year and has gone, the median across organizations has gone to 16 for the year. It's almost 50% more KEV vulnerabilities to patch in 1 year. Now you know why we're taking longer to do it. Now we aren't, but the world is, according to Verizon. It turns out that patch is not the only trouble point that Verizon finds in the report. This is a what they call a survival analysis. Kind of interesting statistical term. This is collected from inside third-party environments. So this is internal vulnerabilities. This data is rarely available. Most of the work is done and the data is external. But this, they found a third-party cyber risk management firm to be part of their data set, and they're able to collect resolution times of common exposures from the inside. Previously, they had data was mostly from external scans. So what you're seeing here is that poor password practices and excessive access permissions needed about 240 days to reach half down. So if you had 100 in your environment, I hope you don't have 100, but you might, especially if you haven't studied it recently, password practices and excessive access permissions. The median firm will reduce that by half in 240 days. So you can see why the hackers are having a good time with environments with this slow resolution times. If you want to look at it, the same question of survival analysis for 2FA exposures, these are improperly set up 2FAs, the 50% survival rate is roughly a month. So there's no speediness going on here either, although it's better than the remediation of the prior slide, which is the poor password practices. However, do note that the tail at 240 days is still a third of lingering MFA related issues. Looking at a point in time snapshot from another cloud exposure data set, which you and I have no access to, that's why we read the Verizon report each year, 37% of organizations had an admin account with MFA disabled on a infrastructure as a service offering. Over a third had an admin account with MFA disabled. So we spend a lot of time on MFA reporting here. It is not easy to do in the world of Microsoft for various reasons. For reference, 14% of organizations, Verizon said, had an admin account with MFA disabled on Snowflake. You remember Snowflake was the big hack from last year. So only 14% had an admin account with MFA disabled. Verizon says, well, they must have gotten the memo from last year's breach campaign, because 14%, which is still not good, is better than 37%. This underscores the importance of all of our proactive activities, studying accounts, studying 365 credentials, studying overprivileged situations. Ooh, there's a lot of them out there. We've conquered nearly all of them, but every quarter we report this back to our clients for action. Talking about accounts scanned with breach passwords, you know that there are breach passwords out there, tens of millions of them, and Microsoft actually screens them using their P1 and P2 licensing. If any of you don't have Entra P1 and P2, that's important to talk about. I'd be happy to talk to you about that, the importance of that any time. But the distribution of percentage of accounts scanned with breached passwords is 4.3%. So 4.3% of accounts that are scanned have breached passwords. So on the dark web, they are available. Probably means that these folks are not running P1 licensing. P1 licensing would not allow you to change your password to a known breached password in the world of Microsoft. By the way, the reuse of passwords, that is having the same password as somebody else in your organization, well, that's 6%. Do you see where the hackers are having a field day in some of these organizations? Third-party metrics, you remember this is an area that is coming up really fast from 30% up to 48 or whatever it was last year, up to 48. Yes, 48 it is. This comes in three pieces. The vendor could be in your software supply chain. That's a fancy way of saying that there's some vulnerability in a software or a patch they've dumped on you, that a backdoor appears, and SolarWinds, of course, was guilty of this issue. The vendor could be hosting your data in their environment and have a problem. The vendor could be connected to your environment and have a problem where the hackers could move to you laterally, where vendors losing credentials to your systems. This is so important area. This is one of the reasons why we use Tech ID, the software. Uh, we change the AD password at our managed clients every 24 hours. It's automatically changed. So that's really important to keep our exposure down and our customers' exposure. AI takeaways is another reason I suspect you've attended today. Shadow AI, we'll be talking about some more in a moment. But the primary impact that Verizon's tracking is primarily operational. These are not novel attacks. These are not newly baked attacks that we've never seen before, but it is a lot of automation and scaling of approaches that defenders already are looking for. So that means defenses don't need reinvention today, but need to keep pace with faster, more adaptive attackers. So we're not seeing novel attacks, Verizon says, but scaling and automating ones that we're already on the lookout for is very much out there, and AI is driving that. It does also lower the barrier to execution for less sophisticated actors. AI allows less sophisticated actors to look more sophisticated and to act and to have more sophisticated scripting and other actions. So you also have to prepare, now that I've told you that Verizon is tracking poor performance in our patch operations, you have to prepare for more patches because AI is discovering them at a wild rate. It's taken quite a while to find these patches and see whether they're false positives, and then, of course, to patch them. But in the meantime, minimizing your internet facing footprint, which is not easy to do, very important step to defend yourself against AI um, vulnerabilities that have been discovered. Similar to last year, about two-thirds of users, I'm concentrating on shadow AI right here in the middle. About two-thirds of users um, are accessing AI platforms with non-corporate accounts. That means they're using personal credentials. These type of unaccounted for AI systems that contain corporate data are sometimes referred to as shadow AI. There are lots of other definitions of shadow AI, including enterprise applications within your within your Office 365 tenant. So we reported on all the enterprise applications before Microsoft tightened the security on these and made admin approval required. But the horse was out of the barn at that point. We've spent many years without admin approval on enterprise applications for most clients. So if you do report on them, you may not be happy. You might find 50, 100, you might find 150 enterprise applications having um, exposure to your data. It actually tells you in the portal what type of access each one has. You might not be happy when you see it, but this is the kind of thing we report to our managed clients and has been very important to minimizing these enterprise applications that probably shouldn't have been there to begin with. An example of enterprise applications would be those that, like Otter.ai, that are doing transcription, but there's lots of other ones out there, names that you may not even recognize, which of course you'll then blow right out of your portal once you look at them. The shadow AI is now the third most common non-malicious insider action in the data loss prevention data sets right here. So you can see number 3 right in front of you. That's a 4x increase, by the way, those of you who are attending today to understand the trends in security. That's a 4x increase from prior year. If you want to know what's being leaked, number 1 is source code at a 28% level. Research and technical documents are there, structured data is there, but source code is number 1, somewhat dramatically in these data loss prevention events involving AI tools. All of us know to train our staffs to look for the shield. This, of course, is a Copilot page. And once that shield is in the upper right-hand corner, that green shield, that means your data is protected. And of course, if you use your corporate credentials in Copilot, that shield pops up automatically. Desktop sharing software has been a thorn in our side for some time, but again, is on its way up rather brutally. We've been minimizing our clients' exposure for our managed clients to desktop sharing software. Desktop sharing software is kind of interesting in that you think you've conquered it, and then when you report it a quarter later, some of it's back again. But it's very important, partly because no one's patching this, partly because it probably shouldn't have been there to begin with, and partly because we don't know whether 2FA is being used. This is the log me in, this is the team viewers. They go by various names. So we report to our managed clients on the top 20 or 25 or 30 of these desktop sharing software in order to eradicate them. It's a rather scary area, but we knew this sort of intuitively. We've been doing this for years. This time period is looking at the desktop sharing software. So let's start in on the multiple breach patterns. And then after that, we'll assemble the breach patterns so that you'll see which one you need to concentrate in which industry. System intrusion. This is point number 6 today out of 9 points in our presentation. System intrusion breach pattern are the more complex attacks. These typically have numerous actions, starting with stealing credentials, exploiting vulnerabilities, phishing, and generally ends up at ransomware at a 77% level. The hacker here uses automation and craft to breach defenses. These are the hands-on guys and gals. Stolen credentials is at 39% in terms of initial access vectors, and exploit vulnerabilities also at 39. So unfortunately, we have to be good at both because there's no 80-20 rule. Let's take a look at the trends. The percentage of ransomware cases where ransom was not paid is rising. That's a beautiful thing. People are relying on their backups and they're not paying the ransom as much. That's a beautiful thing long term. And that's been going on for some years already. Now, one of the things that happens when we don't pay ransom is the average ransomware that is paid is going down. So in 2023, the median ransom was 177K. 2024, it's down to 150. 2025, down to 140. Now, there's still plenty of tail on these curves, and there's millions of dollars at stake for some ransomware situations, so you can't reduce your cyber insurance coverage. But at least it's going in the right direction based on the fact that less and less people are paying the ransom. So supply and demand is at work here as it is elsewhere. Now, we can't see security incidents as isolated. I do find this among our clients that ask us to come in, generally our non-managed clients, that ask us to come in to help them in a security sense. You can't see these situations as isolated. One of my jobs is to help our clients see them as patterns rather than any kind of isolated occurrences. The reason for that is 73% of ransomware victims had an info stealer or credential leak occur within the year of the attack with a median delay of 95 days. So if you've got an info stealer or credential leak or anything else going on, don't see it as isolated. These things can be a pattern and they can end up as ransomware or other troubles. And Verizon measures it at 95 days for those that had an info stealer or credential leak before ransomware, 95-day separation, median. Number 7 out of 9 today, social engineering coming up next. We know all about this, phishing, pretexting. Phishing still about twice pretexting, but pretexting often more effective because it's coming from the chairman or the CFO or some visible name. Email is at 98% of social engineering attacks. Phone and SMS is tiny. I decided to spend some time in this area, phone and SMS, but it wasn't really worthwhile. And of course, the data supports that. Do you see where Verizon's data helps us focus on things so we're not working on extraneous thoughts like phone or SMS social engineering? It's important, but not that important at 1.3% relative to email. And many of our organizations have a long way to go on social engineering. So spending time in extraneous areas, not particularly helpful. So let's take a look at the success rate. The email campaigns are successful at a median rate of 1.4%. This benchmark you can compare with your own results. This benchmark you can compare with your know before fish prone percentage. That's what we use nearly exclusively in our managed services operations. And I actually looked at our at a data set that we can vouch for because we don't believe in any of our manufacturers' data. We produce our own data sets. And this data set is a real client. What you're seeing here is a 6-month period at 0.3% fish prone percentage. That's pretty good data. Wasn't always that way. And if you, those of you who are running without best practices or running without know before or running without any phishing campaigns, you're probably in the 22% range. Nearly all of our clients start between 20 and 25. You can, and then and know before is turned on with best practices injected. And look what happens. The problem, the fishbone percentage goes into the noise and stays there. Can you imagine if we were able to solve all business problems in the world for $3 a month per user or whatever this thing costs, $4, whatever it is? It's pretty impressive. However, know before and probably other packages like this, and probably all accounting software, for example, it's kind of interesting in that unless you ingest best practices, the software actually is not worth anything. So we have clients who are using the same software and still seeing fish prone percentage in this area, which means they're sitting ducks. The hackers are going to take it out on you. But at 0.3% or anywhere below the median, which you saw in the prior slide, which is 1.4%, they'll move on to the next guy. Next is basic web app attacks. Verizon calls them BWAAs. These are the small number of steps after the compromise. Not a lot of persistence. Generally using stolen credentials, not phishing. These are stolen credentials from the dark web. They probably purchased them or they're doing their own info stealer work. The data is exposed in prior breaches and then sold on the dark web. This is where the data goes, generally against web applications. So use of stolen credentials is number one at 56% of the top action patterns in basic web attacks, exploitation of vulnerabilities at 53. The reason I put this slide in this year is these two are new this year. Password dumpers and brute force attacks are new on the top action varieties in the basic web app attacks. Now, these basic web app attacks I sense you're familiar with because keeping hackers out of our customers' 365 accounts, not easy. The good news is the trend is working. Now, we're not going to take credit for this all by ourselves. Our clients are buying better licensing. They're doing better phishing, all kinds of good things happening. But you do see a couple quarters here with 6 intrusions per quarter. And the number was getting down. In fact, there was probably 8 months at 0 right here in the middle. I did take a look at the last data set. All of the Q2 clients that are represented here either didn't have know before or we don't manage their know before, which means best practices are not injected. Remember that know before, like a lot of software, if you don't set it up right with best practices, it's kind of worthless. Kind of interesting. Open my eyes. Number 9, the last one on the hit parade of breach patterns this year that we're going to study. There are a couple more, but not the big ones. These are the big ones. Are unintended human actions directly compromising security? What are the top 3? Misdelivery, which is sending to the wrong recipient, popular in the healthcare sector. That's miscollation. Misconfiguration, which means you've left some database or storage misconfigured, generally using default passwords, or some kind of loss of asset, loss of data. This includes people burning data in the back parking lot. There's all kinds of strange things that go on out there. Unfortunately, miscellaneous errors is nearly 100% breaches because nearly 100% data was lost. Remember, if you send a file containing protected information and you didn't encrypt it, that data is not retrievable. That's a breach. It does include paper documents, and Verizon reminds us that better access controls, monitoring, safeguards against human errors are absolutely critical. All the DLP policies that you may have in report only mode, well, report only mode helps a little bit, but not so much as in production. So that's it for the breach patterns. Let's see how they are put together by industry. So I did cover, I think, 11 industries in today's deck. This is the NAICS code. Some of you have organizations that sort of span various operations, but some of you could probably identify, for example, welcome today, Cindy. I'll be using only first names to protect confidentiality. You're obviously in the healthcare sector. So you're facing ransomware-driven system intrusions. Your top three breach patterns are going to be on the next slide. The data is not thin here. This is 1,500 incidents and almost 1,500 breaches as part of that. The external actors at 81%, so that you do have the 80/20 rule, but you do have quite a bit of internal actors here versus the North American average of 12% internal. So you have a little bit higher penetration. But again, the 80/20 rule is very important because we don't have time to think about actor motives all day long. If you just put the financial hat on and put the external hat on, right? 81%, 99%. Do you see where Verizon helps us focus? And internal data at 65% is generally business emails, business planning, business spreadsheets. Those are what's known as internal. And the patterns don't change too much year to year. Miscellaneous errors has been a top pattern for this industry since they've kept track 19 years. System intrusion, again, unfortunately, number one. Let's take a look at them right here in front of you. So if you were in the healthcare sector, at an 81% level, if you conquered these three breach categories, now the word if is a big word, not easy to conquer these, you'll have conquered 81% of the breaches. That's a good day. We love the 80/20 rule. You'll see that over and over again in a moment. System intrusion we talked about. By the way, these are in rank order. System intrusion number one, you remember that's the complex attacks, often involving persistence, ending up at ransomware at a 77% level. Miscellaneous errors is misdelivery, including paper documents. Social engineering, is a pretexting and a phishing thought. So now you know if you're in the healthcare sector, what to focus on and how to eliminate 81% of breaches if for some reason you were successful in mitigating these. Sticking with the healthcare sector, you can see the system intrusion is the big driver in the past year. So if you're looking for trends in the healthcare business, this is it in front of you. Narrowing this down to just the miscellaneous errors, this is what you're seeing. Misdelivery is pretty stable. Loss and misconfiguration are wandering. Very important to have your data loss prevention in place to make sure that and also that misdelivery, which is usually a collation issue in the mail, where the data is delivered to the wrong recipients in any format, could be email also. Loss is often involving unencrypted user devices and portable media, so encryption helps in this situation. And misconfiguration, as we talked about, is related to exposing data stored to the internet without appropriate controls. Those misconfigurations, by the way, are frequently discovered by security researchers. Luckily, they typically notify the victim organization rather than simply take the data for their own use. But to have third parties identify your miscellaneous errors, that's a tough game to play. Education services is next. We've got quite a few people on the webinar today from educational sector, primarily external financially motivated actors at an 80% level. The data compromise is largely internal. Remember, it's emails, plans. And again, the data is not thin here, 1,300 incidents, almost all of them with confirmed data disclosure. Let's drill it down. Number one, system intrusion again. Number two, social engineering. Number three, miscellaneous errors. System intrusion is 52% of breaches. So obviously that's a focus point for you. Making sure that your RMM package is properly patching. Make sure your patch reports are clean. This, by the way, is getting a little easier for people who are equipped to do it. For some reason, and we're unable to identify exactly why, our Microsoft patch reporting is showing much better results than prior years. When I say much, underline the much. So we've actually moved our bar from 90% patching to 100% for certain Microsoft patch categories. Now, patching still isn't easy. So either we're getting better at it, or our tools are getting better at it, or Microsoft's getting better at it. We're unsure exactly what's going on. But if you don't have the reporting, you need to put that in place because you may not know exactly where you stand. That's where the hackers take over. Malware at 55% of education breaches, hacking at 55. Um, 81% of social engineering category is phishing, mainly using email. And then loss is 21% of errors. That's loss of the data or the media. Those are all related to the education sector, one, two, and three. Hopefully that gives you some focus. If for some reason you're able to conquer these three, it is 83% of breaches in the educational sector. It's a strong day if you can conquer those three. This one, by the way, is absolutely conquerable. But you got to ingest best practices, and the Know Before package allows us to do that. We do resell Know Before ourselves, and we do renew other people's subscriptions, and we also take other people's subscriptions and our own, and we ingest best practices. We actually have a fixed price offering for that, so we reset them up from scratch, and that's really important. That's the only way to get to that 0.3% or anywhere near the 1.4 that Verizon shows as the median. Moving on to financial and insurance, we've got credit unions and other people on the webinar today. This is largely external hackers at a 90% level, financial motive at 98. How they get in is what Verizon calls initial access vectors. System intrusion has been here since 2022, and human element very heavily involved here at 65% in this sector. Let's drill it down, one, two, and three. This three category, depending on how you look at it, is either bad or good news. There actually is not much detail in this, what they call everything else category. It's sort of a lumping category. It's unfortunate in that we can't learn much from it. On the other hand, all we can do is focus on these two. If we're able to conquer these three categories, it is 81% of breaches in the F&I category, something we spend a lot of time on as we have lots of financial clients in our managed services operations. In finance and insurance, you see system intrusion, same kind of thing you saw in healthcare. We have people here, multiple people here in representing the construction sector. Your NAICS code is 23 or starts with 23. Again, the data is not thin, almost 1,000 incidents. External at a 98, financial at a 97. Internal, of course, is emails, plans, and reports. Personal data is not represented here, but that takes us to names, address, home phone numbers. Sensitive personal information, which is not in the sector, it takes you into things like social security numbers. If you have listing of women's shelters for your clients, that would be sensitive personal data, not in the sector. So let's take a look at number one, two, and three. One, system intrusion. Two, social engineering. Three, basic web app attacks. We've talked about them before. If you're able to accomplish substantial reduction in this area, you'll have conquered 95% of breaches. You talk about the 80-20 rule is attractive. How about a 95-5? Let's move on to other services. 81 is generally in Baltimore to be most nonprofit sectors. We do have a lot of nonprofit clients. The data is not thin, almost 1,000 incidents. External at 81, financial at almost 80. Let's take a look and drill it down. Number one, system intrusion. Two, social engineering. Three, miscellaneous errors. We've talked about all these, and again, if you're able to conquer these three categories substantially, you'll have reduced your breach categories by 85%. Moving on to real estate, we have multiple people involved in the real estate sector here in the Baltimore area. External at 80, financial is 100%. Let's take a look and drill it down. Number one, system intrusion. Number two, social engineering. Number three, miscellaneous errors. So if you're ever unsure whether to spend time with your know before incidents uh, to solve this issue, or your data loss prevention with all its flaws and difficulties, now you know what one, two, and three is. That's 85% of breaches in front of you. We have multiple people here representing the manufacturing sector. A lot of data here, 3,600 incidents, financial, internal, external. The top patterns didn't change much from last year. Let's drill it down. Number one, system intrusion. Two, social engineering at 16%. And number three, basic web app attacks. So you can see intrusion is a substantial part of this. 91% in the top three breach categories. Do you see where focus is everything? You can focus your budget, focus your time, focus your reporting. And I hope you'll take that away from today's Verizon report and use it to your advantage. If you didn't see yourself in those categories, and we may want to talk one-on-one, don't hesitate to make a note on your evaluation. There are some people who are in the administrative categories and retail. There are other people on the call today. We may be able to get you more information. I had to stop someplace in order to make it fit within an hour. The deck was already at 69 slides, so I had to cut it someplace, but I'm happy to go with you one-on-one if the data is available. Otherwise, you can use the North American data. They also have small and medium business data that's compiled for all North American incidents, 12,000 incidents. External, financial are the top thoughts. Let's drill it down. System intrusion is one, social engineering two, basic web attacks three. That's 87% of breaches in North America are in these three categories. So that's North American data you can use if I didn't address your industry, or we can go one-on-one and look at the industry itself. I had to stop at 11 industries just as a time thought. Seeking a security comfort level for your organization, very important conversation for you to have internally or for you to have as part of our managed services operations. Here is a chart that I created that has various solution for security in it. Email encryption, firewall reviews, all of your favorites are here. So these are the basics. Basics means you've got to have the yellow ones covered. Otherwise, you could wake up in the morning, it could be a bad day. So without covering these basics, a day can get away from you. Okay, I can't tell you which day. And of course, we're always researching new security solutions, Microsoft's new baseline, Veeam 13, Copilot DLP. All these are under research in our back office. So these basics are important, and I put the yellow ones that you've got to have pinned down really hard. So for example, disk encryption, those of you who are in Maryland, which is nearly all of you, disk encryption is an absolute defense against reporting if you have a loss. That's why I made it yellow, just an example. I have the same chart, but showing you that our managed service operations includes in scope nearly all the security solutions, assuming you've got Office 365 Business Premium or better licensing. Nearly all of our clients do. There's still a few that are extra cost, including ones that are expensive. Some involve a project to be set up, some are expensive, but nearly all the other ones are included. I actually created this chart just to hold us to a higher standard and figure out, do our managed operations include all the important pieces? The reason that seeking a security comfort level and these conversations are important is that every organization has a different security comfort level. It's kind of interesting. So if you, for example, are invest with Fidelity or Vanguard or Schwab, I go up to the Fidelity office maybe every 3 years up in Towson. Nice people, very professional, very heavily trained. They're also working at half speed because they manage $7 trillion of other people's money, and their security is turned down ultra tight. That's not appropriate for most other operations. and does impact their productivity rather heavily. But they accept that as a cost of doing business because that's their security comfort level. Other organizations have a different view of it. And for us to pick and choose among these solutions based on your security comfort level is very important discussions. In this particular slide, it does highlight the thought that some of the security is not very expensive. So under $1 per user per month is all the green areas, assuming you've got Office 365 Business Premium or better licensing. So nearly all of this is small dollar stuff. And security does not have to be expensive. Those of you who have substantial operations at home, who are working largely remotely, as we are here at System Source, after COVID, and because our employees seem to want to, the red ones are the ones of emphasis. So if you're moving computers between home and office, disk encryption is more important than ever. I'm going to show you why patch management is more important than ever if you've got substantial at-home operations in the next slide. This slide is an old one. This is from March 2020, but it opened up my eyes so much. I really use old data in our presentations, but it opened my eyes so much I had to include it in this presentation. BitSight Technologies that does it's a third-party firm that does a lot of external vulnerability scanning for cyber insurance companies. So most of you know that when you contract for cyber insurance, they actually do a scan, and some of them actually scan all year long on your corporate networks to see what's going on before they quote. In this particular case, the TrickBot infection, which is often preceding ransomware, was on home networks at a 4x rate of the corresponding corporate network. So the home networks were seeing infections and various malware at a multiple ret, in this case 3.75, the rate of the corresponding corporate network. That opened up my eyes. And of course, that means that patch management is really important, especially if you're working largely from home based on this data. Do you see where we use data extensively in our work in order to focus our efforts and to keep our managed clients protected? So let's look at security through management's eyes. This is a really important part. Helping top management make security decisions is one of our responsibilities together. We're going to figure out who should do all this work. That's worthy of discussion all by itself. If there's new software being implemented, of course, budget amounts need to be allocated each year to make sure that we secure those new workloads, whether it be firewalls or locations or software or whatever it is. It's not just an acquisition cost. There are ongoing costs. We've got to budget for those ongoing costs for security. We've got to formally list security risks that are assumed by the organization. Remember, every security risk has to fit in to one of three buckets: insured for, assumed by the organization, or mitigated. It's got to be one of the three. And this is work that we talk about in my cyber insurance presentation that I did last week. That cyber insurance presentation replay is available to you. You can just jot that on your evaluation today, and we'll get you a copy. Making sure that you select cyber insurance terms and coverage amounts, making sure you're prepping security metrics, and that you understand what enhanced security impact users. Those are all important to top management, all important um, fixations and conversations. So let's start with number one. Who's going to do all this work? Verizon has, Gartner, who's sort of the grandfather of research in the IT industry, has a chart. They call it the run, grow, transform model. This model says not all IT tasks are created equal. So for example, if you're putting in a new ERP system or a new dashboard system, that would appear in the upper right-hand corner. It gives your organization tremendous competitive advantage if done properly and requires a lot of knowledge of your environment. But watching your backups, managing your 365 portal, managing your 365 tenant, all of that appears in the lower left-hand corner. Most people do it, so it doesn't give you tremendous competitive advantage and does not require us to be intimate with your environment. So depending on what IT tasks, it will locate differently on this chart. And then Verizon overlays this chart with what they call the run, grow, transform model. Anything in the upper right-hand corner, like ERP systems or dashboard systems, Gartner says you own that responsibility. In the left-hand column, in left-hand corner, Gartner talks about the run activities. These run activities, Gartner says you outsource those. So that's the gist of the run, grow, transform model. It's very interesting, partly because management is calling you all day long, asking you about the transform activities, but most of the people and the process and the tools are tied up in the bottom left-hand corner along with the budget. So that dichotomy between run activities and transform activities is one thing that drives us crazy. It makes our jobs that much harder. We talked about creating metrics so that any representations we make to management or cyber insurance companies are charted. So we use the quick glance dashboard, and this is a spreadsheet that's about 66 lines long. What you're seeing is a little piece of it right here. So we can show our clients and share with them their status in each security category. And it's kind of fun because we can watch our clients go from red to yellow to green. Now, none of our clients are all green on the security quick glance, but there is also a infrastructure quick glance, and we do have a few clients that are all green in that area. But being able to chart these is very important, both to show progress and to figure out where we stand, and partly because some of our environments are complicated enough where memorizing this and trying to guess at it would be too hard. So, in summary today, use disciplined processes to counter the threat because that means that the hacker will move on to the next person if you're not a soft target. Think like a hacker and a business person. Not easy to keep both hats on each day. Seek a security comfort level for the organization. That's an important discussion. And if there are risks that are being assumed in the organization, and I'm sure there are, that are not being insured for, or you'd prefer not to insure for it, and are not being mitigated for various reasons, maybe old software, maybe not enough budget, maybe not enough time, make sure top management knows of those risks that the organization assumed. That's a very, very difficult area in my experience. And reach out to us or somebody if your people, process, and tools aren't sufficient to counter the threat. Remember, you have to have all three in place, people, process, and tools. Even if you have two of them pinned down, that actually does not count. All three have to be in place to counter the threat. So that's a summary. I've asked Michelle Robinson, who runs our Learning Center, to provide some security courses and some promotions on them. And a reminder that we do sell, and we do sell a lot of, we have many, many thousands of seats, maybe tens of thousands in Know Before. That's my presentation today. Don't hesitate to complete the survey after the webinar. We do have 1 or 2 minutes left. If you have questions, don't hesitate to put them into the chat or question box. Note that if you've tried some of this and it's either worked or doesn't work and you want to share it with the crowd, don't hesitate to put it in also. While you do that, I will look at the questions you asked when you registered. I'll be using first name only. Cindy, you asked about AI security risks. We definitely covered that today. Hopefully you saw something where the risks are not novel, at least not yet, but we've got to watch shadow AI, and we have to understand that the hackers are having an easier time because they've got automation and they can buy AI scripts and so on that makes them faster. And that means as defenders, we have to be faster. Parker, how do I better my organization's security posture and advance my knowledge in the security domain? That's admirable that you're learning, and I suspect you can teach us something also. Let's see, Nick, latest security trends and prevention. Nick, you put a note in a moment ago. What do you think about Action One? Tell me more about Action One. I've heard the word, and I'm having a tough time relating to what it is. Don't hesitate to put more detail in there. Thanks, Nick. Vulnerability management. Thanks. This is Action One is probably a external vulnerability scan tool or maybe internal vulnerability scan tool. Oh, it's an RMM. Thanks very much. Got it. It is. Thank you. In small operations, as Bill's noted in the chat, free up to 200 nodes. There are some RMMs, and I think Action One. I'd have to go to Reddit to answer your question directly, because my experience, of course, is in thousands of nodes rather than hundreds, and I don't have experience with the free tools. But my understanding is that Action One rates fairly highly. Before you quote me on that, don't hesitate to go to Reddit. Go to the MSP directory in Reddit and put in the word Action One, and you will get some feedback on it. Those MSP folks, they don't hold back. Based on the feedback in Reddit, we actually chose the Ninja One tool about 2 or 3 years ago as we moved over from Kaseya. So, and Bill, thanks. You're noting for patch management, it's good. A remote tool only, fine, no file transfers. Interesting. So, the free tool is, of course, going to give you a limited feature set. Don't hesitate to take a look at Ninja if you wanted to. Obviously, there's not a free product, but it is available either using our Ninja tenant or buying one of your own. We do resell Ninja ourselves, and of course, are experts at it because we use it every minute of the day, literally. Um, so don't hesitate to consider us if you wanted to consider the Ninja product line, either using our tenant or buying Ninja for your own tenant. We have people on both sides. Bill, welcome today. Always want to increase my skill set. That's certainly admirable. Matthew, how do I avoid these security incidents? That's certainly a big discussion. I hope you got something out of it today, um, especially in the top three breach categories. And I'll take other thoughts, but otherwise, I wanted to close on time because at System Source, the trains run on time. I appreciate your compliments. Anything else for today? Then thanks. I appreciate your time very much.